Everyone knows the headline: 300 Spartans. A narrow pass. An army so massive it was said their arrows would block out the sun. If you've ever heard Thermopylae told on YouTube, it usually goes one of two ways. Either it's pure hype, like a superhero movie, or it's a dry recap of names, dates, and troop counts. But Thermopylae hits harder when you tell it like what it really was. A controlled loss. Not a victory, not a miracle. A decision to lose slowly on purpose so everyone else doesn't lose instantly. Because in 480 BC, King Xerxes of Persia wasn't just invading Greece. He was bringing the weight of the known world with him. Persia at this time wasn't some random rival kingdom. It was an empire that stretched from the Indus River to the Nile. That means money, food, manpower, ships, engineers, supply lines, and political pressure across continents. Xerxes had spent years gathering soldiers, building ships, and stocking supplies for one goal that was both personal and strategic. Athens. Maybe it was conquest. Maybe it was revenge for Athens supporting a rebellion years earlier. Either way, Xerxes wanted to make an example out of them. And he didn't need genius to do it. He only needed speed. That's the part people forget. Greece wasn't a unified nation yet. It was a collection of city-states that fought each other constantly. Athens and Sparta were bitter rivals. Everyone had their own pride, their own politics, their own grudges. So if Persia moved fast enough, Greece wouldn't fall in a dramatic final battle. It would fall apart. Some cities would surrender to save themselves. Others would panic. Alliances would crack. Democracy in Athens was young and fragile, the kind of system that can be crushed in its infancy if the world hits it too hard, too soon. So the Greeks didn't need to defeat Persia on day one. They needed time to become Greece. That's why Thermopylae mattered. The pass wasn't chosen because it was heroic. It was chosen because it was narrow. Thermopylae was a natural choke point, squeezed between mountain cliffs and the sea. In open terrain, Persia's advantages are obvious. More soldiers, more archers, more cavalry, more everything. In open terrain, that becomes momentum, and momentum becomes collapse. But in a tight pass, an army's strength turns into a problem. You can't fight with everyone at once. You can't flank. You can't surround. You have to funnel into a meat grinder. Thermopylae was not a stage. It was a bottleneck. Leonidas understood that. He didn't march north expecting to destroy Xerxes. He knew that was fantasy. He marched north to slow Xerxes down and force Persia to spend blood and time on every foot of ground. That's why the famous number matters, but not in the way people think. Why only 300 Spartans? Not because Sparta only had 300 warriors. Not because it was a publicity stunt. Leonidas took a small elite force because what he needed at Thermopylae wasn't a massive army. He needed soldiers who would not break under pressure, who would hold formation, who would obey, who would stand in a narrow corridor and turn their bodies into a wall. And there's another detail that's always worth saying out loud. He chose men who had already fathered sons. That's not romance, that's policy. Sparta's warrior culture was built on legacy, bloodlines, and continuity. If these men died, their families would not end with them. It was a brutal kind of responsibility, like saying, "You're going because your name can survive it." Now, people love to say Spartans were fearless. They weren't fearless. They were conditioned. Sparta's system didn't create brave men by inspiring them. It created obedient men by shaping them from childhood. Boys were taken young and raised under harsh discipline. Hunger was used as training. Pain was treated like an inconvenience. Toughness wasn't celebrated as an option. It was demanded as the baseline. So, when people imagine Thermopylae as a bunch of men finding courage, it misses what made them so dangerous. They didn't need to find courage. Their society didn't leave them room to be anything else. And at Thermopylae, that discipline mattered more than raw aggression. Because the Greek defense was built around formation. The phalanx, heavy infantry, hoplites, shoulder to shoulder with bronze-covered shields, spears layered in coordinated thrusts, a wall that moves like a single organism. It's not flashy, but it's terrifying when it holds. So when Xerxes opened with archers, it didn't deliver the instant wipeout people imagine. Greek armor and shields absorbed the storm. Unless an arrow found a gap or hit an eye, the barrage didn't break them. That's when Persia had to do what Thermopylae was designed to force them to do. Close combat, in a narrow space, against disciplined heavy infantry. Waves of Persian soldiers surged forward. They hit that wall of shields and muscle, and the wall didn't move. Spears came down from above and rose from below. Men fell, bodies piled. The pass became clogged with the cost of attacking it. Even Persia's elite, the Immortals, couldn't simply outclass the Spartans in that environment. Their armor was lighter. Their shields were different. Their strengths were speed and flexibility, not grinding shield to shield in a corridor. 2 days in, Persia had a new problem. Not just casualties, confidence. Because a giant army expects smaller enemies to shatter quickly. When they don't, the giant begins to doubt its own inevitability. And doubt is contagious. But Thermopylae wasn't only a land battle. This is the piece that makes the whole story feel new when you really lean into it. If Persia controlled the sea, Leonidas was finished no matter what happened in the pass. Because Xerxes could land troops behind the Greek line and trap them from both sides. That's why the Greeks set a second choke point at sea, in the narrow waters near Artemisium. And the key figure there wasn't Leonidas. It was Themistocles. Most people treat Themistocles like a footnote. In reality, he was the architect of survival. Years earlier, he understood something that sounded paranoid to everyone else. Persia would return. And when it did, Greece's fate would be decided by logistics and supply, not just heroism. A Persian army that large cannot live off the land for long. It needs food. It needs equipment. It needs replacement parts, animals, supplies. And the safest way to move that in the ancient world is by sea. So if the Greeks could damage Persia's naval support, the invasion would begin to starve and stumble, even if its soldiers kept marching. Athens didn't want to hear it. Citizens wanted money in their pockets and normal life. Themistocles had to play politics to build a fleet, using newly discovered silver and convincing people to invest in ships instead of taking payouts. Call it manipulation, call it foresight. Either way, it created the tool Greece needed most. At Artemisium, the Greek fleet was still outnumbered, but the geography helped, just like it did on land. Tight waters reduce the value of overwhelming numbers. Maneuver and timing become everything. Themistocles attacked late in the day, which sounds small but is genius. It reduces the time you're exposed, forces the enemy into rushed decisions, and lets darkness end the chaos before you're destroyed by sheer numbers. So while Leonidas held the pass, Themistocles held the water. 2 choke points. One strategy, delay the machine. Then something happened that every great plan has to face sooner or later. A leak, a path. Thermopylae had a mountain route that could bypass the main pass. It wasn't unknown, but it was the kind of detail that seems manageable until it suddenly isn't. Persia found a way to outflank the Greek position. And this is where the story turns from hype to heartbreak. Because the moment Leonidas learns the Persians are moving behind him, the battle is over. The question isn't, can he win? It's, can Greece escape? So he orders a withdrawal. Most Greek troops leave before dawn, and Leonidas stays. This is the moment people romanticize, but it's more practical than romantic. He stays because someone has to hold the line while everyone else gets distance. Retreating an army is dangerous. If the enemy senses it, they surge. Panic spreads. Formation breaks. It becomes a slaughter. Leonidas becomes a covering force. A wall that absorbs the hit long enough for others to live. And he doesn't stay alone. About 1,000 Thespians stay too, a detail that gets erased in pop culture because it complicates the clean 300 myth. But it matters, because it shows this wasn't just Spartan pride. Other Greeks chose death to buy time for Greece. On the final morning, a Persian scout watches the Spartans oil their bodies and comb their hair. It looks like vanity from the outside. But it's ritual, it's readiness. It's an acceptance so complete that it's almost unsettling. The final fight is not cinematic. The phalanx breaks, spears snap, men fight in chaos, Leonidas falls, bodies stack. The Persians don't win because they finally outfight Sparta. They win because the Spartans are surrounded and exhausted and outnumbered in a space that no longer favors formation. And when it's over, Xerxes does something that reveals how threatened he felt. He mutilates Leonidas's body and displays it. That is not the act of a calm victor. That's the act of someone trying to crush an idea. Because Thermopylae created an idea that Persia did not want spreading, that the machine can be stalled, that numbers can be neutralized, that small states can cooperate, that the giant can bleed. Xerxes marches on. Athens is eventually burned. But Thermopylae did what it was built to do. Athens evacuates, the Greek fleet regroups, and later, at Salamis, Persia loses control of the sea, the one thing it cannot afford to lose if it wants to keep its army alive in Greece. So Thermopylae wasn't a victory. It was a purchase. The Spartans and their allies paid in blood for something more valuable than a battlefield. They bought time, and time gave Greece the chance to become what it had never been before. Not just city-states, a people. That's why Thermopylae echoes through history. Not because 300 men died, because they chose where to lose so everything else didn't fall apart.